Fans, welcome. What is up, Chicago Bears fans? Welcome to the Chicago Bears Huddle podcast. Your host, Owen James, channel that gives you your UK take on our Chicago Bears. Guys, we're going to talk offensive matters. We're going to talk Rome Odunze going into his second year as a Bear. Look, him and Caleb could be, a dream team, a dream combination going forward. Rome Odunze is someone who, obviously coming out of last year's draft, very highly rated. Obviously, ex-Husky, someone who, at college was just one of the outstanding receivers, and when the Bears took him, was exceptionally highly well thought of. Coach Randall L., the new Bears wide receiver coach, even branded Odunze the best wide receiver in that draft. Obviously, bearing in mind that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors were also in that draft as well. Look, was Odunze as spectacular as Neighbors and Harrison Jr.? Well, probably not as spectacular as Malik Neighbors, certainly, but look, there is potential there. There is promise there. And now the Bears have that offensive mind in Ben Johnson. And obviously, I think, you look at the OTAs, and I know it's football in shorts, and until you get hit in the face in real football, you never know how players are going to react. But Declan Doyle, obviously the coordinator, looked very much the business as well. He was taking a prominent role in coaching the Bears offense. I think something that wasn't perhaps expected. I think a lot of people expected a Sean McVay-esque Ben Johnson takeover in Chicago, but Odunze was someone who was singled out for praise. Now, look, you look at the press conference that Ben Johnson gave earlier this week, and he spoke very much about obviously the Caleb Williams situation, which he had to address that. But the key player he picked out from the offense was Rome Odunze. Yes, he addressed the Cole Kmet thing, where he obviously ripped Cole Kmet a new one. Very interesting indeed. But, we're here to talk Rome Odunze, and this is what he had to say about Rome. To be a second-year guy, you would expect a little more inconsistency, and yet the way he approaches the meeting room, the walkthroughs, and on the field, the drill work, he's much like a seasoned pro, some of the best I've been around. Now, obviously in Rome Odunze going to his sophomore year, the concern is always sophomore slump, but it looks very much from these early sounds and early noises that are coming out of the Bears coaching team that he is not going to have that sophomore slump. He is a top level receiver from what Ben Johnson is saying. Now, look, Ben Johnson, I think you need to remember, obviously, he was in Detroit with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And to brand Rome Odunze, a seasoned pro, some of the best he's been around, and liken him to them, I think does show the esteem that Rome Odunze is presently held in by Ben Johnson. He went on to say this: he's still learning, and I know there's a lot of information that's getting thrown his way. Randall L. and Picasso are doing a great job with him, and I think we're going to see a lot of growth from him, not just in the springtime, but once we get to camp. So, obviously, not only is Rome Odunze getting the opportunity to work with Declan Doyle, and he's getting the opportunity to work with Ben Johnson, Press Taylor, the passing game coordinator, but he's also getting to work with Coach Antoine Randall L, ex-NFL wide receiver, Super Bowl winning wide receiver Antoine Randall L, a guy who, when he was a coach in Detroit, was exceptionally highly thought of, and is an exceptionally good coach, and I'm sure that he can do an awful lot to bring on Rome Odunze, obviously sharing that knowledge and that genius that he has. But there's the growth is there, and we finally, I think, do have. I mean, I said this on yesterday's video. I talked about the fact that as far as I'm concerned, the Bears have what I would describe as the best coaching staff in a long time here in Chicago, with Ben Johnson, with Coach Randall L, with Declan Doyle, with Press Taylor, with JT Barrett, with Eric Bieniemy, with Dennis Allen, the names, Den Rauschar, the names just roll off the tongue, don't they? Absolute super talent wherever you look. And I think, Rome Odunze, I think will really benefit from that. Now, Odunze quite clearly has the talent. You've only got to go back and look at his college tape to show the talent this lad has. And he showed flashes of it last season, certainly for the Bears. The thing you've got to remember is obviously Keenan Allen has moved on now. He got over 120 targets for the Bears. Those targets have to go somewhere. There's extra targets. Keenan Allen and DJ Moore were the go-to guys. Rome Odunze obviously moves up that wide receiver non-existent depth chart, as Ben Johnson told us. So you've got obviously, yes, Luther Burden, who I think will be very much in the slot. Olamide Zacchaeus as well, who obviously will be another slot. You've got Odunze, you've got DJ Moore. There's a lot of talent in that wide receiver room. And I think a lot depends on how Ben Johnson schemes his offense and schemes these wide receivers open. Look, given what he's saying, given how impressed he's been with Rome Odunze, and I can only go off that, and if Rome Odunze continues to impress, which I think he will, you've got to kind of work on the basis that Ben Johnson will continue to go to him and will actually scheme him as a big part of the Chicago Bears offense in the 2025 NFL season. If we flash back to last season, Rome Odunze's stats, these are his stats. He had 54 receptions on 101 targets, 734 yards, averaged 13.6 yards per catch, which is very good. 3 TDs. I think that number will substantially increase this coming season. His long was 47. He also had 3 carries for 15 yards. I don't really see that as part of Odunze's kind of long-term game. I don't think that Johnson will scheme that in. He's not Deebo Samuel, is he? He's certainly not that. Although Luther Burden has been mentioned as a possible Deebo Samuel type. Be interesting to see if Ben Johnson uses some of those trick plays and uses Luther Burden in a Deebo Samuel kind of role as a what was it Deebo Samuel was referred to? A wide back? Maybe. I don't know. But we're here to talk Rome Odunze. This lad is impressive. And, the tape that I've seen from the OTAs, and I know, I get it. It's football in shorts. I know. He looked impressive. He looked very impressive. And there was a pass from Williams, a long pass down to Odunze, and it was absolutely top quality, the way that Odunze reeled it in. And I think, he is a guy who will go on to have a massive, massive season. And when your new head coach is impressed with you, and, he's reporting a guy who, clearly knows his offensive beans in Ben Johnson, is reporting Rome Odunze in such high notions and in such high mentions, you've got to kind of take that on board and run with it. And I think that Odunze will go on to have a very good second season. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you the Bears are going to win 15 games or 14 games, or going to go on to win the Super Bowl, or going to be NFC champions. I'm not sitting here and telling you that for the minute. I'm a realist. I know that I've suffered, a lot. But this guy, I think, has the talent to take the Bears to the next level in a very exciting wide receiver room. Guys, give me your thoughts on Rome Odunze. Thank you for watching the Chicago Bears Huddle podcast. On your way out, guys, if you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember, let's bear down.